Yeah, so today we are going to look at Post GIS primarily and everything that some operations that revolve around it. We looked at Post GIS previously within the week, and so think of it as a continuation of what we did. So let's see what we have. So as usual, let's just go through what we looked at previously. We looked at WMS and WFS operations in GeoServer. In our previous session, we were also able to customize some symbols or some styles in QGIS. Then we were able to import these symbology styles into GeoServer and tested with some of our layers, layers and lines and polygons. And we also did an introduction to open layers. We also shared a link through which you can view or you can read through about the open layers. Then we were also able to visualize a demo on visualizing a web map service that is published in GeoServer, and we were able to view this in open layers. So today we are going to first of all, we are going to create a Post GIS database. And there's a link that has been shared in the chats for the data that we are going to use today. And then we are going to import some data. That is the data that we have shared. We are going to import it into Post GIS. And then we are going to create a Post GIS data store in GeoServer. We looked at how to create vector and raster stores previously. So today we are going to look at how to create a Post GIS data store. We haven't done that, so we are going to see how we can do that. So one thing that for us to be able to create the Post GIS data store, GeoServer has to be installed. So I'm assuming that we did the installation of GeoServer. So that is you're still going to use the same GeoServer that we have in our PCs. Then we also installed PostgreSQL. So I'm assuming that you already have that one as well in your PCs. And then for us to create a data store, we may need to create a database first, because this data store will be pointing to that database. Sorry. Yeah, so we will log into our PG admin as we did. So we did this procedure, but we are going through it so that for those who may have encountered challenges or have forgotten the procedure, then you can do the same. So you will log into our PG admin, and then if we have a PostGIS database, to avoid confusion, you are going to, if you have any PostGIS databases, the ones that we created previously, you are going to drop them, okay, or remove them. And there's a disclaimer there, or there's a warning: do not delete the Postgres database, because it is it is the administrative database for PostgreSQL. So if you delete it, you may encounter problems. And I also think Postgres may prevent you from deleting it, most probably. Then we are going to create a new database. Let me correct this. It should be GIS training DB. It should be GIS training DB. Not training _ DB, it should be GIS. So it should be GIS _training _DB. So that is the database that we shall be creating. That will be the name of the database. And then we will create inside it a PostGIS extension inside the GIS training DB database. And then So this is just a pictorial presentation of what you can click on your start menu, click on or search for pgadmin. In my case, I'm using pgadmin 4. Maybe some have 3. So you can start your pgadmin, and then it will show that splash screen that is written management tools for PostgreSQL. And then there's a pop-up that will appear after some seconds that shows you need to enter the password for the user of Postgres. And there's also actually it's the other way around. You'll be asked to enter your master password. So you remember there's a password that you input previously. So you may need to log in using that. And that's why we say that use passwords that you can remember, so that you can move together. So we have connect, then there's another pop-up for now logging into the database server. So it is a third screen, the fourth screen or the fourth screenshot. And then initially, when you remove all the databases, if you have them, you should be having this kind of a picture here that has only one database, which is Postgres. And then you will right click on the databases link, and then you click on, you place your cursor on create, and then you'll create the database. Then you'll name your database GIS_training_DB. And this is how it should look like when when you have created your Post GIS database. And then, yeah, so after you have created your database, you will create your Post GIS extension. So we will be using it because you are working with the GIS data. So under extensions, after you have created the extension, it will look as shown on the right screenshot. And let's now go through the data that we are using. So the data is in the link that has been shared in our charts. So you can use the link to download that data. So our first data is a layer, and this layer or this consists of the administrative countries of the world. So that will be one of our data sets that we are going to be using. Then our second data set is for roads for Somalia. As you can see, they take that shape of the Horn of Africa across Somalia. And then we will look at, there's this data that contains attributes for Africa Health Index. And I think they are there. So this is the one that we'll be using. And then we also have, we have included our data with our data, SQL or SQL files. So if you have downloaded that data, you will look at one of the files. Some of the files are in SQL or SQL format. And if you open them, maybe you can open them in Notepad++. This is how they look like. And then we also have another one titled Nairobi, which is also a SQL file. So if you can recall from our previous sessions, the SQL, when you opened those, we were doing the queries in the pgadmin, you are seeing something like this. Some text that looks like this. It's insert into values and all that. Yeah, so let's repeat the processes. So we are going to create a Post GIS database named GIS_training_DB. And we are also going to do we are going to import our SQL data into the database. And then we are going to import the S3 shapefiles using the QGIS DB manager. So inside QGIS, so we are going to import some shapefiles. So inside our data folder, we have some shapefiles. Then we are also going to import the shapefiles using the shapefile importer. So I believe these are not new. Not everything here is new. Some of these we are familiar with them. So let's, we are going to, first of all, open our pgadmin prior to loading our SQL files. And then we are going to open the SQL files using inside pgadmin. And the screen or our SQL files will be shown as they appear here on the screen. And then when you load your SQL files, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. It contains this is the same file that you are seeing previously in the Notepad++. So we've also seen this when we were doing the queries in our previous session. Then you can also import our, okay, this is the shapefile importer. It is not the DB manager, it is the shapefile importer. Where we will use it to import our shapefiles on the desktop. Then prior to creating a Post GIS store, we are going definitely to start our Post GIS, our Geo server, sorry. Then we are going to log into our Geo server in the admin, the login dashboard. And then we are going to create a Post GIS data store. And then we are going to save this store. So this comes after we have created our Post GIS and imported some data. Then we are going to publish layers after you have created the store and it has been added into the Geo server. Then our next step will be to publish these data sets. So this is a pictorial presentation of what we're going to do. We're going to start our Geo server. I believe by now, at least everyone knows how to start the Geo server, okay, from the start menu. And this is, you're going to log in. After logging in, you're going to identify the stores link that is under the data section. And then inside the store, we are going to add a new store by clicking the link shown on the most recent screenshot. And then you remember we have already tested the directory of spatial files, in this case shape files, and also raster sources. So this is something that we haven't done. We haven't created a Post GIS data store. So after creating clicking on the new data store, so it's going to show us a page that looks like this. It has a new vector data source title, and it's showing the Post GIS database. The workspace is going to specify our workspace. I believe we still have the workspace that we were using. Maybe it has a different name from the one shown here, but it does not make any difference as long as you have a workspace. Then we are going to input our data store name. We can also add a description. Then we have the connection parameters. So these connection parameters are very, very important. So we will add the host of our database. I believe most of us, since we have installed our Postgres in our PCs, then we are using localhost. And then the port number is the port number in which your Postgres runs on. The default is 5432. So if you had not changed the port number when installing, then it is 5432. And then you'll add the database name. And in this case, remember our database is GIS_training_DB. And then we will also add our password. So this is a password that you are using to log into our database server. Then below the password, we have some other items, primary key, metadata, although these ones we will leave them as default. Session startup SQL, session closeup SQL, callback factory, SSL mode, maximum open prepared statement. So for these ones, we just leave them as default, and we will just click after we have configured our connection parameters and basic store information in the first screenshot, then we are just going to click save, so that when you click save, it now creates that database. And after it has created the database or the Post GIS store in GeoServer, then it's going to list the store in a list that is shown on the most recent the screenshot. So I'm going to, before we go or we move further, what we are going to do, we are going to go to our computers. My the screen has an issue. Configure the screen. It's connected. Okay, so let me share the screen. It had disappeared. Okay, so we have our computer here. So what we are going to do, first of all, I hope you have been able to download the data. So let me open the data. These are how the data looks like. Yeah, so there's a directory of shape files, and it has about, I think there are three shape files. And then we have another one that has the 2 SQL files. Okay. So let's look at these files. So let me open this file in Notepad. We installed Notepad++ in our previous session. So this is how it looks like. We have this is what you call a SQL language. So this is how it looks like. And if you recall from our previous sessions, we looked at some data that looks like this. It has very big values that were representing geometry. So the other file is this one. So it's all more or less the same. So it's also a SQL file. So please do not, if you're opening it, do not edit anything here, because it's going to, you may not be able to import it. So you just leave it as it is. You are just viewing what it contains. Okay, so the first step will be opening our PG admin. So just type PG admin. And it's going to show you a splash screen. And then it's going to display a window that looks like this. So I'll need to input my master password. So these are the passwords that we set when we were installing. And then I believe if you are since you may be using it more often than not, you can click the option or check the option for saving password, okay? Yeah, so after that, then I will just double click these servers. So I had already saved my password, so it does not show another pop-up, but in your case, you may see the other pop-up for password for logging into PostgreSQL database server. So we have these dashboards. So in my case, I only have this one database. So let me just create some database here. So what I was saying, if you have any other databases besides Postgres, like now I have this DB1, okay? I want us to remove that database. So if you have your database, probably it's called GIS training or something. we had created some databases initially or previously. So you can right click on these DB, like this DB1, then you will see the third option here. After you right click is delete and drop. So remember you are right clicking on this, the database, the DB1, okay? When you right click the particular database that you want to remove, then you right click and then you click, scroll through the options, and there's a third option here, which is delete or drop. So I'll just click that and it's going to show a confirmation message that states, are you sure you want to drop the database DB1? Say yes. So you need to remove your databases, and you'll only, in this case, you'll only have these kind of a database, Postgres only. And inside the databases, it will be showing 1 in brackets, okay? So let's right click and create a new database. So our database, we will call it GIS underscore training underscore DB. So in this case, in our previous sessions, we said that you can name your database whatever you want, but in this case, I would urge you to name the database because there are some files, the SQL files, we're going to import them. And if you have changed our name or something like that, then we are going to encounter some problems. So call it GIS training underscore DB. And then after the GIS underscore DB underscore training DB, after creating the database, you can leave the other options as they are and you click save. So now I have the GIS training DB. This is how it looks like in the PG admin. So our next step will be creating the extension. So remember what we talked about Post GIS. So the Post GIS is an extension that gives Postgres database spatial capability or capability to handle spatial data, okay? So you can right click on the GIS training DB that we have created. Just click, right click, and then create. Then under create, you click on extension. Then this extension, when you click, there's this area written under next to besides the name, on the right side of the name label, you have select an item. Okay. So you can click on it. When you click on it, it displays a drop down. So you can inside this white area here below the select an item, you can click first, and then you'll see a blinking cursor. So you need to type something. So we know the extension is usually called Post GIS. So when I type it, it actually brings this Post GIS. Then if it shows here inside the name, then you can click on save. Then you'll notice that inside this extension, we have something here titled Post GIS. You can even right click on it and look at the properties. Okay. Yeah, so anyone who has a challenge creating the DB or Post GIS, let's check. If anyone has a problem, you can also write in the chat. So we have this extension, Post GIS. So now we can perform, spatial operations and what have you. So let's look at the next steps. Okay, so we have these, now after creating our database, the next step should be importing, we will import our data inside the database. So the database is empty, okay? So the first thing that we will start with, we will start by importing the SQL files. So ensure that you have downloaded the data, and then inside this PG admin, you click on, there is one icon here, which is the query tool, a black icon next to the browser, the name written browser, there is a query tool. And you will note it by when you place your cursor on top of it, it shows query tool. So you need to click on this query tool. So it's a black kind of an icon here for the database. So if you click on it, it's going to open this interface, some white interface that is titled Query Editor. Then after that, what you're going to do, there are certain menus up here. Okay. So we have these next to the query tool, which is the first icon inside here, where I've placed my cursor. We have the second icon, which is for opening a file. It's a folder icon, a black folder icon. It's the second one. So I would invite you to click on it. Then when you click on it, you will navigate. So let's say I'm somewhere, I don't know where I am in my file system. So you need to go, if yours is in downloads, you go to downloads. So in my case, I have it in my desktop, GIS training, data, PG, Post GIS 2, and then I have the shapefile. So the file that you have downloaded has two folders, shapefiles and SQL. So this is, you're going to click on this SQL, and we are going to start with this, the first one, which is nai_aoi.sql. And then you're going to, after you have clicked, you need to ensure that you have clicked. Otherwise, if you have not clicked anything inside here, if you have not clicked either of these files, you'll notice that the select button is disabled or inactive, okay? So you need to click on one of the files. Like in this case, you're going to click on nai_aoi.sql. Then we click on select. And it may take some time to load your SQL code. In my case, it has not taken a lot of time. So anyone who has a challenge in loading their SQL files, nai_aoi. Okay, let me just briefly repeat that. So we have this is our dashboard, okay? Let me also expand, let me actually expand the screen. So you see up above here, next to the browse name, we have this icon. So that is called the query tool. So whenever you want to write some SQL or to query something like your database, you use this tool. So I'll click on it. And then when I click on it, there is this an array or a series of a list of icons, function icons here that appear here above, like you can see here. So there is this icon that is an icon of a folder, and we usually even see it on Windows and other softwares. In this case, the only difference is that it's black, but it's a folder icon, and that's where I've placed my cursor. So if you want to open a file, a text file or something, somewhere where there is a query, like now we have a SQL file, so you need to click on it. So when you click on it, it opens the file explorer. It's like the browse button that we click in other user interfaces. Okay. So probably when it opens your browser, the file browser, it looks like this. It's probably somewhere, in some local disk C or somewhere else. So you need to navigate, if you are in, let's say like myself, I am probably in this home, this PC folder. So I can see my drive C and my drive D. So you need to click inside this, wherever you have downloaded it or you have saved it. Alternatively, if you have challenges locating your files inside this, what you can do, you can open the folder explorer for Windows, and then let's say yours is in downloads. So if it's yours is in downloads, let's say there's this called other. So you can click, you can highlight all the path. So in this case, I'll copy this path, but now the path to where you have downloaded your folder, the shared folder. Then you come back to PG admin, and then inside here you can paste it, like that. And when you paste it, then you can click enter. And you'll notice that it has taken me to this folder. This folder has a file titled Somalia Road. And then if you confirm, you see the Somalia roads. So in my case, I know that my data, you need to know where you have downloaded your data or you have saved your data. So my data is in the desktop, GIS training, data, PG, Post GIS 2. So I can just come here and highlight, oh, SQL. So this is this SQL, these are the files. So I can just come here and highlight, copy, and then I paste that path here. And then I can just click enter in my keyboard, and it has taken me to that, or navigated me to that particular folder. Then you need to click on one of the files. So in this case, we are loading these nai_aoi.sql. So I'll just select it. And after I've selected it, it displays the code, the SQL code, okay? So that is one. The second option, maybe if you find that to be long, you can just open your query tool. After opening your query tool, you can identify where your file is in the here. Then you can, I believe you can drag and drop. Show if it will work. Yeah, so it has actually loaded it. So I've just dropped it, dragged and dropped it from this file system. So if you are going to do this, be careful so that you do not duplicate the code. You do not drag it twice. Just drag it and place it on top of that query tool or query editor once, and give it some time, because you've noticed that even mine has taken some seconds before it has loaded. So I believe we are all able to load this. So you'll notice it is a very long file. Let's see how many lines it has. It has, in this case, it has 520 lines. Okay, so I will click this play button. There's a play button that where I've placed my cursor. It's like a triangle. Looks like the play button for a DVD player or a car stereo player or something like that. So we'll click on this play button, and it will start running the query. Okay, and we have an error, and I know that this error, I knew that this error is going to appear. Okay, so the error tells me that type raster does not exist in line 2. Let me go to my line 2. There's somewhere where we have specified raster. Yeah, this one, raster. Okay. So why it is refusing, it's because for you to, this SQL file is a SQL file that represents a raster dataset. Okay. So for you to work with the SQL, with the raster, you need to create another extension called Post GIS _raster that specifically deals with the raster operations. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to go back to our database here in this dashboard. Then you can right click and you create what? You create an extension, just like the way we created the previous one for Post GIS. So I'll right click the database. Remember, you're right clicking the actual database, which is GIS Training DB. Right click. Then create up here, the first option, extension. So if you click on extension, it takes us back to the same window that you are using. Then you can type Post GIS, and you'll notice that it displays a lot of stuff here. So in this case, we are interested with Post GIS _ raster, okay? Because we are trying to work with the raster file. So we'll click Post GIS raster. So that's why we are seeing that error. The error states that it's because it cannot detect the extension for raster. Yes, please. If it runs successfully, then you can check, is there a table inside there? You can check if the table exists. So because basically what this does is that it's creating a table in your database. So there's some, you have yours has run successfully. Okay. So if yours runs without an error, that is fine, okay? So let's click save. But one thing that I want, you'll notice is that we have Post GIS and Post GIS raster. So inside your, let's see if after we have created our extension, let's run this play button and you see whether it will run successfully. I think there's I'm encountering some errors. So if you have yours has run successfully, what you can do is that you can identify the database. So if it is like this, just collapse it so that you have all these items, cast, catalogs, extensions. So you can click on schema, double click, and then it will show the public schema. Ensure that you have a table. Under tables, ensure that you have a table titled the NAI AOI. Do you have your table? Okay, so let me repeat. For me, I have errors. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to reload my query file from the file. So it will ask me, I'll just click this browse button again. So it will ask me whether, there are unsaved changes. Are you sure you want to discard the current changes? I'll say yes, because I want to reload the SQL file again. So I'll click yes, and it's going to, the good thing here is that it takes me back to the previous folder that I was using. So I haven't had to browse again from folder to folder. So you click on the NAI _ AOI and then you click select. And then let's try and rerun it again and see after you're running the query what is happening. Okay, I seem to be having an issue. Let me reduce my screen size. Yeah, so it's saying that the current transaction is aborted, commands ignored until end of transaction block. Okay. So could we try using the other file, which is Samburu? Okay. We see whether we'll be able to import. Have you been able to import yours without a problem? Or it is still submitting. Yeah, so in the event that if it's running the query, do not disturb it. Let it just complete, okay? Give it some time to complete. And then for me, let me also try opening the other one, the Samburu one. This other one for NAI has given me some errors. Let me open this other one, and then I try to click on the play button here. Let's see whether it's going to. I'm hoping that it's not going to disappoint me. Yeah, you notice that it is still running. It may take some time. Has anyone completed their query? Yours is also running like mine. Okay, so I think there's an error here. server closed the connection unexpectedly. This probably means that the server. Yeah, so I think there's a huge memory implication in my case. So if you encounter something like this, I would advise that you just close your pgadmin and open it again. Okay, just close your pgadmin and then you can open it again. Okay, so let's start this one. Okay, I'll open my database. Then I will open the query tool like before. Let's try it again. So I'm going to open my SQL file. And then I'm going to open the NAI AOI. I'll select it. So it's showing the files. Then I'm going to click the play button. Okay, so we seem to be having a bunch of errors. Yeah, so there's an error here that is saying vacuum cannot run inside a transactional block. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll up to the last line, and then I'm going to remove this line here. Then I can try rerunning. Oh, so actually, I think even when it showed the previous error, it had already created the table. Okay. So it's telling me now that it already exists. So if I want to confirm, you can right click on tables and then you refresh. Or you can also click on schemas and then you do a refresh. So I have a table titled NAI AOI. Has anyone been able to create their table? Or you're also encountering errors? It's saying what? Exists. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Anyone who has, I would like us to, you have an error? What does the error say? Current transaction is aborted. I think it's because that file is heavy, okay? It's big, you know, those statements are many, you know, and also it has a geometry column. So that geometry column usually consists of a bulky data. So if you encounter that error, would you try and restart the pgadmin? Just close it, that dashboard, and then you start it again. So that the SQL files are for the, what is it called? They are for raster files, okay? So they consist of many fields and also big fields. Yeah, so I agree with Daniel. Yeah, it's okay to restart your pgadmin. So if you encounter an error that is saying, you know, what was it saying? Abnormal what? Something, it has terminated abnormally or something like that. Yeah, so if you encounter something like that, you should restart your pgadmin. Then if you have been able to create this table, the first table like mine, I would also invite you to just click on the table like these under tables, we have these AOI, then you click on this icon for viewing the data. So it may also take some time. So let's see if we have been able to find it also. Let's see. The query shows waiting for the completed. So you have been able to create a table. Yeah, so there are people who are like not the same error what you are not running inside the transaction on the top. So just scroll inside the SQL statements. The last line. The last line. That error should not be say about I refresh tables. So if you have an error saying vacuum something not run, that's already clear. You're supposed to now report the table. So just apply your query to the yeah. Then you so if you have been able to create the file, the table for I then you can try also import the so what we are doing, we are creating a table. We are creating a table based on some SQL file or backup. Yeah. So if you get an error saying vacuum cannot run inside transactions, no, I'm not correct. It's because of the last line, the last statement that file. So the table has been created. And how can you confirm that? Go to your browser and refresh. Click on the database or the database. Click on refresh. Then refresh. Then if you look at the tables, you see there's a table called 9. So has anyone been able to create the Sambu? For Sambu? I think for Sambu may take some time, but well, for us, we cannot identify that. Yeah, I was surprised because I know that she is faster to create that faster. Because it does not understand what faster is. We do not have the extension. Yes. What does it say? Okay. Yes. Okay, but the second one, right? Yes. Very good. That answers your question. Very good. We're going to use it for yeah, very good. Postgres so so you repeated that technique. What explain? You just see. So now we have an issue. Ensure that when you are beginning, ensure that you are running your query tool shows. Let me just. It should display where you are running your query. And yeah, so my SQL, yeah. So you notice that when you run your query, it shows above here, Postgres at something, or it shows where you're running your query. So be careful so that you are not running your queries inside Postgres database. We are working on the new database that we created. Okay. It's not connected to the server. Okay. Okay, so has anyone been able to create a sample? So you have the templates. Yeah. Not the templates. Oh, there's some people whose connection has been lost. I think it's because of the time, because of the second amount. So it's just okay. So those can't be loading themselves. That's why I want us to add that. And I also want us to appreciate there's something else here to yeah, so whenever there is a long execution, when you're executing a query and it takes a very long time, there is a limit. Okay, so have you been able to create the table? Have you been able to create the table? Or you still Nai and the Samburu? It's still loading. Okay. Okay. So now I've actually zoomed out a lot. Not see the icons. Let me just restart my PG admin because I also encountered that error for connection loss to the database. So I presume that you have at least been able to create the first, what is it called? The first table. Yeah? Were you able to create the first table? Nai AOI? The Samburu one is the one that is taking a lot of time. So what you can do, just leave the Samburu one, okay? Do not create it, do not import it. So if you're importing it, if you encounter, let it just continue. But do not, if it brings or results to an error, just leave it. Do not import it again because it may take a lot of time. And there's something else I want to show you as a workaround. I'm going to zoom into my screen here. I don't know. It told me it's Control Plus. Yeah, it's sort of. Let me see. My screen is very, very small. My screen is misbehaving. So anyway, if you are encountering an error, just close your PG admin. Okay. There's something I want us to try using our QGIS. Okay. So I will invite you to open your QGIS since we already have our database. Okay. And it at least has the Post GIS and the Post GIS raster extension. So just click on your start, and you can search for your QGIS. So open your QGIS. And open my QGIS user interface. This is how it looks like. So inside let me remove this connection. I had created an extension. So inside this Post GIS, this browser, there's one of the items titled Post GIS. So you can right click on it and create a new connection. So inside your browser, this is the browser up here that contains favorites, C drive, Digio package, WMS. We used it actually yesterday to display some WMSs. So you can click on Post GIS, you can right click. It is the highlighted one on the screen, and then you click new connection. So if you click new connection, then we have this is what we have. You can we have name, service, host, port, and database. And then we have some other settings. So the name of the connection, you can just call it GIS training DB. GIS underscore training DB. And then for the service, we will leave it, we will ignore it. And then we go to the host. The hosts, we are hosting it in our local machine, so it is localhost. And you can put your port number, or you can, if you did not change the port number when you're installing Postgres, then you can leave it as it is. Otherwise, you have to put the port number, like my port number is 5801. And in the database, I will, the database name, remember, it is GIS underscore training underscore DB. And while if you have input the name, the host, and the port number is there in the database, you can click test connection. And it is actually, for me, it has shown me to log in. So you have to log in using the Postgres account and the password that you set when you are installing. So I'll click OK, and you will see there's a message showing me connection to GIS training DB was successful up here. It does not stay for long, it has disappeared. So I've been able to connect. So I'll just close, and you'll notice that, sorry, I've not saved my connection. I've closed before I've saved. So I'll have to repeat the procedure. Right click Post GIS, new connection. Then for the connection, I'll call it GIS training. Although for the name of the connection, you can add any other name that you want. So GIS training DB. For the service, I'll leave it as blank. For the host, I'll call it localhost. And then for the port number, my port number is 5801. Yours might be 5432 if you did not change. So you leave it. Then GIS underscore training DB is the name of the database. And then it's good to test. You don't assume that your connection is okay. So you test. And when you test, it's saying connection to GIS training DB was successful. Then I'll click OK. And you'll notice that now it appears here. There's you can double click on this Post GIS. If you double click on it, it shows you the connection. So if I double click my connection, it will continue, it collapses to public, okay? Then it also collapses to, inside public, we have the table that we created. In this case is NAI AOI. Do you see it in your browser? QGIS, do you see it? Do you see the NAI AOI? Yeah? Oh, the QGIS is still starting. QGIS, PG admin. Okay, so let's do this. if your PG admin is still running, just close it. Okay, just close it. I've noticed. I think it's because of the RAM. Yeah. So that the query that we are using to import the SQL it should run on, I think, some machine. So maybe if you have a machine that is maybe 4 GB of RAM, then it may become a headache. So just close the PG admin. Then you open your QGIS. So we want to access our Post GIS database through using QGIS. Okay. So if you're running PG admin, just close it. Then you start your QGIS. So we are going to connect to our database from QGIS instead of using the PG admin. So there's a workaround of what you are doing. That's what I want us to do. Connection. So if you do not change the username, if you do not do anything like create a new user at any point, the username should be Postgres. Postgres. Posters. So it's POSTGRES. The database is called Postgres SQL. So the name is you remove the Q and the L, but it's all letters. That is the reason Postgres. And the password is never password. Okay, so you know the service. The host is localhost. Then the database name is GIS_training_. So the database host, since you're using it in your machine, is localhost. Small letters. Localhost. Then the port number, if you did not change it when you were installing a couple of days ago, it should be 5432. But if you changed, then you should put your whatever you put there. Then for the database host. Then for the database name is GIS_training_DB. GIS. Remember we created it as our first step. Training _DB. So have we been able to open our QGIS? QGIS. The QGIS. Be careful about the name of the database. And also, those are the things that we create in data database as a first step. We put them in Post GIS database. Could be. Thank you. Yeah, so I at least want us to have a GIS. You have the encoded to open the GIS and connect to your database. I will only proceed and fix that. Because if you notice that we have encountered challenges trying to import them using the ETL. If you have ETL, you can just as long as we are able to get the database added extensions. Let's look at the GIS. So have we at least been able to connect to our database? Yeah, so we've been able to load an image. So if you have connected to your database, you'll notice that there's an image titled NAI AOI. Like the one shown here. So if I double click my NAI AOI, it loads, and maybe if you're not seeing it in the main map, you can right click on it and click on zoom to layer. So does this layer look familiar from the previous sessions? I think we used these layers somewhere, okay? So one thing that I think we can all agree is that performing raster operations, even in the database without the user interface or the client like QGIS, is a challenge, especially if you have limited resources. And by limited resources, I'm meaning something like the RAM, memory, the processor, okay? Because you've encountered hurdles and challenges. So there's a workaround, okay? And the workaround I'm going to show you right now. So while you're still on your QGIS, I would want you to, and you have these, remove your layer. You can, first of all, you click your layer and remove it. And then we are going to remove the layer that is in the table that is in the database. Don't remember that. So we have NAI AOI in the browser, isn't it? Inside our database. So right click on it, and then you can click delete layer. So it will ask you, are you sure you want to delete table public.NAI AOI? Say yes, click yes. And the table has been removed, okay? Successfully. And then there's also another there's also another table here that is titled raster columns. Do you have it? Do you see it? We have removed the NAI AOI. So there's another table titled raster columns. Right click on it and remove it. Or delete the layer. So it is saying that items cannot be deleted. Can you see that? Do you get that message? It's a warning. Do you see the same? You get the same. Why do you think you cannot delete the raster columns from our QGIS? So when we created the Post GIS raster extension, okay, it created a table that stores those raster items, you know, the bounding box and all that, okay, that metadata for a raster. Every raster image has certain properties. It has the corner points. You remember we talked about the bounding boxes yesterday. So that information is normally, you know, the database has a schema for any raster that you import, okay? So you cannot remove those tables. Those tables are attached to the extension of Post GIS raster. Remember, we also saw something else in the database. There's a table called spatial reference systems, or spatial something like that. It is created when you create Post GIS extension, okay? So you cannot just remove it directly. You may have to go to the database and remove that extension, okay? So that's why we cannot remove those raster columns. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to import, you remember we still have our SQL files. So if you are also able to create the Samburu one, and you have it, you can see it in your browser, QGIS browser in your database, kindly remove it. So you only have the raster columns, the public GIS training DB, public and raster columns. So I'll just close, so you cannot remove those. So now we are going to use some, we are going to import our shape files. First of all, you remember we have shape files in our folder, in our downloaded data. So the shape files are not a problem. So we are just going to add them as using the DB manager. So identify the database up there. There is one of the menus titled database. And then inside under it, there is DB manager. And I think we used this in our previous Post GIS session. In our previous training session on Post GIS. So this is how the DB manager looks like. Have you been able to load yours? You're able to load yours? Yes. Under DB manager, you click the DB manager. Under the database menu, you click the DB manager. You need to be having a window that looks like this. And can you double click the Post GIS? And you'll notice that it shows the database details on the side here. Okay. So one way you can use this DB manager to import our layers, but we need to first of all have our layers inside the QGIS. Okay. So let's close the DB manager and load our layers first in the QGIS map area or QGIS layers panel. So let's close the DB manager and then you go to layer, add vector layer. So I think we've also been doing this, so I don't think this should be a challenge. Then you can browse to your data. If you have your data open in a folder, you can also drag and drop the .shps, okay? You can drag and drop it in your QGIS. So I'll click my shapefile. So I have Africa Health Prov index. I have Somalia roads.shp and worldadmin.shp. So I'll click open and then I add them. All of them. I've added the 3 layers. So I have 3 layers in my QGIS. Alternatively, you can also drag and drop. So let me remove these layers and demonstrate how you can do that. So I'll remove that and then I will go to my folder where I have my data. I have these shape files. So I'll identify this .shp. Then I'll start with the first one. I drag and drop it in QGIS. You see it has shown some map of Africa there, layer of Africa rather. Then I can drag and drop Somalia roads, and then I can also add the world admin. So this is how it looks like. So we have 3 layers. Let me disable one by one. So we have the Africa health road. Then we have this layer for roads of Somalia. This is how it looks like as it was appearing in the slide. And then we also have the world administrative boundaries. Okay. So if you have the 3 layers, now you can open your DB manager. How do you open your DB manager? Identify the database menu at the top and click on DB manager. Yes, please. It does not have DB manager. This means it is inactive. So let me show you how you are going to do that. Somebody or some of us may not be having the DB manager. So what you do is that you can come here and click on plugins, manage and install plugins. Then it displays the plugin menu, which looks like this. So you can click on installed, okay? There's installed menu here on the side. So if you click on the installed menu on the side, you have DB manager. Do you have it there? Is it checked? It is not. Yeah, that's why it is inactive. So you need to check it on the checkbox. Because this is a core QGIS plugin. It comes with QGIS. So every QGIS from I think around 2 point something, QGIS 2 going upwards. If you're using, I'm assuming most of us or all of us are using QGIS 3. It has DB manager. It's only that it may be disabled. So after you have enabled it, click OK. Do you see it on the menu? Yes. Yeah. So open your DB manager. And then you click, double click on Post GIS to ensure that you have connection to your database. And you should have something like this. Post GIS as the parent, then it has a child, which is our database, GIS Training DB. And inside GIS Training DB, we have public. You have that? Good. So it means that you are connected to your database. So we have a new, we are going to do something here. Import layer file. So does it ask you for the username and password? Okay, this is what you're going to do. If your DB manager is not connecting, could you click on database and click reconnect? There's a database menu, the first menu. Click reconnect. Is there a reconnect menu? Database inside the DB manager. There's a database menu as the first menu. Refresh. And what happens when you refresh? Or is it is inactive? Still the same. Okay. Do you just close your DB manager? And then could you come here on your browser? Do you on your browser is it do you have a Post GIS connection? Yeah. On the side here, do you have it? Yes. And could you double click on the database? Do you see public? Okay, then that's weird. See why. Right, so now you can click on inside your DB manager, click on import layer file. There's some menu there for import layer file. Database, DB manager. Then, so I've confirmed that I'm already connected into my DB. So I'll click import layer /file. Do you see that on the toolbar? And then it's going to show you, it's going to display this kind of a window, import vector layer. Do you have that? So we have, if you click on this, there's a drop down here. You can see that it shows all the layers, okay? So what we are going to do, let's just import, let's import all the layers, okay? Let's import all the layers. So you'll start with, you can only import one layer at a time, if you have noted. You cannot add the 3 layers, you can only do one. So we'll start with the world admin. And remember, we are using the public schema, okay? So in schema, click public, okay? Then table is, this is what it's going to name the table. So in this case, the table will be called world admin. Then I would like you to check the target SRID. You can ignore these others, the primary key, geometry column. Just click on target SRID, ensure that it is WGS84, okay? EPSG 4326. Then check create spatial index. So what the spatial index does, it usually arranges the data, the spatial data, in this case, the geom column. It usually indexes it such that if you want to query, you can query your data in a very fast, okay? Yeah, it uses some algorithm to index the data, that geometry column, the column that contains the geometry, such that, so that you can be able, if you do a spatial query, remember we did some queries in our previous sessions, so you'll be able to do a very, a quick or a fast query. When we do not have indexing, the data is not, it's not arranged in a proper manner. Think of let me use an example like a library. When you go to the library, a library contains a catalog. So that catalog is what you use to get your book. You can select your book based on the author. You can select your book based on the title, and maybe the titles are arranged in alphabetical order, isn't it? So if you want a book by Anthony, you'll first of all go to the author in your catalog, and then under author you look for letter A. The letters that start with A, because you're looking for a book by an author whose name is Anthony, okay? So that is what indexing is about. Spatial indexing specifically deals with, it indexes the geom column. You saw the geom column is a very big column from the PG admin. So if you do not check this, okay, for this layer, you might not notice a difference. But if you have a very big layer, then your layer may take a lot of time when you are querying, when you're doing some spatial query, like, a spatial join. We did this in our previous sessions. So if you do something like that querying, then you'll find that it may take along some more seconds or something, or even some minutes before it gives you a solution, okay? And it could also, consume a lot of resources for your machine. So that is the importance of this spatial indexing. So ensure that spatial indexing is checked. When you have done that, click OK. And it will import the data into our database. You see the way it has imported very fast. So it's saying import was successful. So we have imported our world admin. So I will invite you to import the second layer only. So I just want us to import 2 layers only. Okay. For the third layer, I'm going to show you what you're going to do. So I'll import, in my case, I'm going to import the second one, which is Somalia roads. And then I'll just check, I'll ensure the schema. Always be careful. You ensure that everything here is okay. Schema should be public. Do not leave it as blank. Target SRID should be EPSG 4326 or the World Geodetic System, WGS 84. That's the one shown on the screen. Then we have the create spatial index. Then you click OK. So it will start importing the Somalia roads. So the DB manager is it comes quite in handy when you want to import data. So if you find that the PG admin way is more complicated, you can use that. So how do I confirm that I've imported my 2 layers? So you do not need to close the PG admin. You can just come here and double click the public, and you'll see that we have Somalia roads and we have world admin table. Okay. Then just click on any of those. I'll click on Somalia roads, and then I click on table. It's going to display the table, the fields. Yeah. This is how the fields for Somalia roads look like. You see we have these, so these are the fields. Then you can also click on preview. There's a preview tab. So if you click on preview tab, it shows the layer. Okay, you can zoom in or zoom out. Yeah, so the DB manager can also be used to check on these layers. So you can also add the layer that is in your database into QGIS. So could you double click on one of those layers? So in this case, I'll double click world admin, and you'll notice that world admin appears on there. It appears again. We have 2 world admins in my layers panel. I've closed the DB manager. So you'll notice that one is being loaded from the file system, the other one is being loaded from the database. Okay. So we have been able to import 2 layers. So what will we do with the third layer? With the third layer, what I want us to do, have you been able to import the 2 layers successfully? So just close QGIS. Okay, just close it. And then you'll open the shapefile. Let me just close my QGIS. You can open you remember what Post GIS, you can type Post GIS in your start window. Post GIS, and we have this thing titled Post GIS Bundle 3 for Postgres SQL Shape and DBF Loader. You remember we used it also in some of our previous session. So just click on it. Are you getting something? Are you getting a DLL error? Remember we fixed it, so you should not be getting any errors. Yeah. Target source SRID and spatial index. Source SRID and check. So you need to have this window. Yes. Then this be able to open be able to open this. Yeah, I remember we were having this issue. This was giveaway. Go to see different cards. Okay. B. So there's a file we can need. So try to connect to the lines. So if you have that window, try to click on view connection, view connection details. Okay, so what does it say? Let's sorry. Yeah, this is because of the coding system. Could you click on this thing clicking and select the link. Let's go right up. Post GIS, what understand is that could you have you imported the 2GIS? Yeah. So as it imported, also check the coordinate system. Ensure it is EPSG 4326. So it has imported. Then you, after you import, you can run this too. The Post GIS shapefile importer. So view connection details, it will ask us to log in. So you remember username, password, and the database and the port. You click on start, type Post GIS. Sorry, let me click on start. There is the Post GIS tool that we are using, Post GIS. You should see a tool like this. Yeah, then it will show you this window. This one. You click view connection details. Then you can add your username, which is Postgres. If you are using that, then we have the password. And then we have the server hosts. And then you have the database name. So remember the data to input a correct database name, which is GIS _ training _ DB. And you click OK. And you'll notice there's a message that is showing here, connection succeeded. Okay? Connection succeeded. So could you import add file? If you have not been like myself there, add file, then identify the other shapefile. Which one is it? In my case, I added the Somalian one. So you have add Africa something. Africa. Yes. So in your case, identify where the shapefile is. It needs to be on that white part. Are you going around the GUI? Is user interface? Yeah, so I have the file. Click on the file and then you create the file. Whether you can be able to connect to our database. Yeah, so we have these SHP to VGSQL. Somebody is asking why we did not import. It's because I wanted us to import using this shapefile import export manager. That's why, because there are various ways of importing the data. Okay. You remember in our previous session, we were trying to run this tool and it was giving us some error. You remember? Like the one you had. So we weren't, some of us weren't able to grasp the concept of importing geospatial data into the Post GIS. So that's why we are using that. We have done it in the DB manager, but not for all. So this other layer, we are using this other tool so that you can be able to grasp the various ways of importing have you imported? Not import. Have you imported? Yeah, not imported. So let me add the layer. At least I've seen that all of us we are on the same page. So I'll click add file. I'll navigate to my desktop. Then I'll look at shape files. So this Africa is the one that I had not imported. So I'll click open. So do you see it has displayed on your user interface? But remember, so the first field here, inside here, import list is the shapefile. So it shows the path and the name. Then we have the schema, which is public. Then we have the table. So the table will be named this, whatever name is showing here. Then the geometry column is geom, but the SRID is 0. So that is a problem. Why? Why is it a problem? What is SRID? So what happens if you import it without a coordinate system? Yeah, so you may not be able to view it or something like that. Okay. But let's see, let me import it. So I've imported it without the SRID. So let's see what happens when I try to read it in my QGIS. So do not import it. Let's see what happens, you know. Let's see. So I'll open my DB, I'll connect to my database. And then I'll look for that layer, which is Africa Trove Index. So I'll just double click. So do you see there's something that is being shown here? There's a question mark. Yeah. In the layers panel here, there's a question mark. So whenever you see this question mark in the QGIS, it's telling you that it does not know the coordinate system. Okay. So we need to add the coordinate system. So if I click on that question mark, this is what it brings here. It shows me this kind of a window. So I can just add 4326, the SRID. Then I click OK and it will disappear. So instead of having to do this in your SRID when you're importing, just type 4326, okay? Which stands for the global coordinate system. So type 43, do not, where there is 0, type 4326 and then you click import. And you can also try and load it in your, after you do it, you can try and load it in your QGIS. And then you see if it is going to show. I mean, if it's going to show the question mark. Have you imported successfully? There's an error. What does the error say? So it means that you already have a table named whatever you are adding. Did you add the layer? Had you added the layer in QGIS? Had you imported it? Because it means there's a layer that exists. As the error states, there's something that exists in that name. Or have you imported twice? You know, if you click import and then it imports and then you click import again, it will be like you are importing twice. It's showing layer has no coordinate system. Did you put the 4326? Okay, let's see what. Okay, let's see what. So we have close. If you have imported you have any errors yourself? Yet more than existing. So it's saying that this table exists. Which table you know? So it means you have already got tables. So we can now you are very important. Maybe what you can do just demand. So what will happen is, when the meeting manager is still open and you're reporting elsewhere, it does not refresh. Okay, so you need to go through. So I can figure out one day, there's only a meeting is so we can close the meeting manager, just put the other. Yes. Like 456. You now fresh and then see this. See, we are missing one day. You see that. So whenever you report to agency, it's important some data. So just so that I should find it. So have we been able to import the 3 layers? That one is Africa. You look at the second scene, so Somalia. So open your 3D monitor. Watch there. So it should. Yeah. So according to your experience, which method do you prefer to import your data? Yes. Which one is the best or easiest? Yeah. Using the Post GIS report or the DB money. Depends on what? We open the PGIS. So for me, I need for myself, I need that I will use the DB now. I don't open the PGIS. As long as I'm just loaded, I'm loaded the layers. You know, the other shaper in Bola does not show you the layers of the PGIS shows you the layers. And then for the shaper importer, that is fine. Maybe you are finding shaper. For the shaper importer, you also need to know how we put understanding of the special reference ID. Not everybody knows what is 436. 4037, you don't know that 7, 3, 37. Okay. So that's why for here we choose the big money because it's in QGIS. QGIS is like the client and it has the database for all the special references. Okay. Yeah, so that is one thing I wanted us to appreciate. You know, that there are various ways of reporting. Now, remember that there are raster data that have given us a date for understanding this session. Yeah. So we are going to look at them. We are going to look at them, but in our next step, I want us to now remember we have not created the Post GIS for your server. We need to do that. Okay. That's our next step. So you can close those importers and maybe even your QGIS. So we are going now to go into our GeoServer. So if your GeoServer is not running, I'm assuming it's not running. So let me close this QGIS because you know, if you have so many things that are open, your machine may end up hanging. Yeah, it's fine. So we have let's open our browser. Now, before we open our browser, let's start GeoServer. Do you remember how to start GeoServer? So just going to click start and start GeoServer. Then this window, our usual window that we are used to be seeing, will appear. Yeah, so we have this GeoServer. So it does not take a lot of time to start. So let's start our GeoServer. And then it's showing started. So we can open the browser. So this is my browser. So remember our GeoServer, I think it's in localhost port 8080/GeoServer. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. Let me paste this link in the chat, maybe for us who. The link to access our GeoServer. So this is a GeoServer. So I'll just click login. So are we able to log in? Okay. So you can see your stores and all that we created yesterday. Yes, please. The GeoServer. Oh, in Linux. So you can cd opt. I think it's installed. I'm not sure. Let's just look at it. That's cool. So we have our GeoServers. So you go to stores. Okay, so I want us to go to the stores. In the left side, the left list of menus, we have stores. So have we opened our stores? I had already added my store, so let me remove it so that you can add it together. So you'll go to store, then it will show you the stores that you had created earlier, isn't it? You can see them. So I want you to click on add new store. And then you'll see this window that we have been seeing, and then you click on Post GIS. There are two Post GIS. Do not click the one with J and DI. Just click on Post GIS only. What do you see? Do you see some information there? Like looks like a form. Inputs and the buttons and checkboxes. A long list. Do you see that? So let me click mine. So Post GIS database. So it says new vector data source. So what is your workspace? Under basic store info title. Do you see GIS workspace or whichever workspace you are using? Yes. So there should be a workspace. It is mandatory. You notice that next to the workspace, we have a star. This star means that that is a mandatory property or a mandatory field. So the data source name is also a mandatory field. So for my case, I will name it my data source as GIS _ just the same name as the database. But it's not a must. You can put some other name, GIS training, you know, and all that. So I'll just name mine GIS _ training _ DB. So it is, that is the data source name. The description, you can describe it, you know, you can type something there, you can call it database store, you know, training database store, whatever you want to call it. Yes, store. Yeah, so the description, you notice the word description does not have a star, so it is not mandatory. So you can also leave it as blank if you feel too lazy not to type anything there. Feel free, you can leave it as it is. So we have the host. So the host is also mandatory. The port is mandatory, and okay, the database is not mandatory. However, let's put in. You should put in the name of the database. So in the host, you notice that it is already predetermined or pre-typed local hosts. Okay, there's a text there. So for the port number, it is also added. However, I'll change mine because mine is 5801. Then we have the database. So the database, you should be careful. Add the actual database name. So like my database is GIS _ training _ data. So the schema is public, that is the default schema, so I'll leave it as it is. Then the user is Post GIS, unless you are using some other user. So the user is, in this case, is Post GIS. So those things that you are typing, you should be careful, do not mistype, or because it's not going to connect. Then for the password, I will also, it had added some password here, so I'll just remove it and put the password that I know. And you'll notice that the password field does not show the characters. It's a password field, so it hides the character for the password. Then maximum connections, minimum connections, those you can leave them as a year. So there's this thing called the fetch size. The fetch size, if you place your cursor on any of these fields, you'll notice that, look at my cursor, when I place it on the user, it says username to login. There's a tooltip that appears. Password used to login, maximum number of open connections. If I place it on fetch size, it says number of records read with each iteration. I believe this is either interaction or interaction with the database management system. Batch insert size, number of records inserted in the same batch. And it's saying for optimal performance, set it to 100. So anyway, we'll just leave these as they are. We won't change anything. Even the other options below here, we'll leave them and just scroll down until you find the save button, if you believe you have typed your information correctly. So click on the save button below, and then you'll notice that I'm having errors. It is saying error creating data source, data store, check the parameters. Error message, unable to obtain connection, cannot create pullable connection factory for database that this database does not exist. So it is saying that database GIS training data, let me zoom in, does not exist. Do you see that? It is saying that it does not exist. So let me see what I did in my database name. So let me scroll up and look at the database name. You see what I called my database? GIS training data. And for my case, that is not the name of the database. It is GIS _ training _ DB. Okay, so I'll just correct here. So if you get an error like the one I've shown you, stating that, you know, that database, something like this, does not exist, then it means that database indeed does not exist. So after you have input your items correctly, you should click save, and it should automatically save, and it will take you to a new layer page. Do you see that? So we have, can you see the layers that we imported in QGIS into our Post GIS database? Yeah. So we have been able to add this. So what we can do, let us publish. Let us publish this, these layers. So I'll start with the first one, Africa Prov Index, and I'll do the publish. We published a couple of layers in our previous session. So I'll compute the bounding boxes from the data, then save. Then I go back to my data layers, I add new layer. And remember now, you'll notice that we have a new workspace. In my case, it is GIS workspace, GIS training DB. And you'll notice that the layer that I've just published has a tick, a green tick, indicating that it's active, it has been published, and it has published again under action. So it means that it has already been published. So we have Somalia roads. I'll do the publishing again. And if I click compute from data, compute from native bounds, I click there, then I click on save. Then I click on add new layer again. This I add from the same candidate. So in this case, I have the world admin, compute from data. Then I click save. So how can you confirm that your layers are displaying? What were we doing in our previous session? Yes? Layer? Yeah, you use the layer preview. So you can use the layer preview to check our layers that we have just published. Where is it? You can use this, you can check using the let's see, we have which are they? These Africa Prov Index. So let me click on inside in this layer, I click on open layers. Do you see the layer? So now it is in our GeoServer. And you can also try and click in one or any of the polygons inside. You'll notice that there's some information that appears here. Let me zoom in. You notice that there's some information that appears here. So if I click this, it shows the country name, Botswana, South Africa, Madagascar, Zambia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, you know. So that's what it shows. You can also test with the other layers, like the Somalia roads. Here is how it looks like. Then you can also check on the other one, which was it? Which was the other layer? World admin. So it shows the map of the world, or the layers representing the continent, all the continents. So you can also click on some of the polygons and you'll notice this is what it shows. Argentina, Bolivia, of China, Mongolia, Russia, Japan, Saudi Arabia. You know, when you click on any of the polygons, you get that information. So the other thing you can do, actually, let me just open the world admin. You can also load the layers from our Post GIS using we have the WFS, and you know we also have these. You can also display them as the WMSs. Okay. Yeah. So that is on importing we have been able to import our layers into Post GIS, and we've been able to add our Post GIS store in the GeoServer. Okay. Yeah, so After we have done that, I think we can briefly look at our slide. Go back to our slides. Yeah, so we have been able to create the Post GIS, GeoServer Post GIS store. And I believe now it's straightforward. Especially creating of a GeoServer, a store in GeoServer. Isn't it? I believe now we could say we are comfortable, creating data stores in GeoServer. Okay, because we are doing it for a second time. So now there's something else. We have also been, for us who are able to import these, the NIE AOI, I remember we have deleted it, but you remember for those who are able to import it, when you opened it in QGIS, you had something like this, isn't it? You were able to view the raster. Do you remember this raster came from what? An SQL or a SQL file, isn't it? Yeah, this raster came from a SQL file. So let's see what you can do. So we have something called Post GIS raster import. Okay, this is something new. We haven't touched on this. So let's see what it is. So it works within QGIS. Okay, that is one. So you need to open your QGIS first. Then inside the plugin menu, we are going to install it. And then you'll install a new, you'll click new plugin, and then you'll type the name in the search bar inside your plugin downloader. You'll type Post GIS raster import as shown here on the screen. And then you can click on the load raster layer. First of all, you need to install it. So after we have installed it, we are going to load our raster layer which we want to import. So let me ask, do you still have the raster layers that we were using in our previous sessions in your computer? Do you have it? The Samburu, and the other one, the NAI and the MSA? Yeah, so let's see, we are going to use those rasters. And then after we have imported, you are going to open after you have installed, you're going to open the plugin from the database menu, okay? So this is what you're going to do. You're going to open your QGIS, click on plugins, then under plugins, you click on manage and install plugins. Then this is the plugin. When you search your plugin, it's called Post GIS raster import. This is how it looks like. The icon, the information for that plugin. Then definitely if you click on install, it will start the installation process, which is not long, it's quite short. Then it will be displayed after it has installed successfully, it will be displayed in the DB manager. Okay? It will display below the DB manager. Okay? Because it is a database plugin, so it will appear under the database menu. Okay? Then it will show the post. This is how the user interface looks like. It's just a simple user interface whereby you enter your raster layer, you enter your database connection, schema, and the table name. So you even have the liberty of naming your table as you want. Okay. Then you can click upload. So in this case, you notice the upload button is disabled. So because I had not added any raster layer there. Yeah, so we'll also look at another plugin called Post GIS Query Builder. But let's first deal with this, the Post GIS raster import. So I'm going to pause the slide there, and then we can close this window for GeoServer because we have been able to import our GeoServer. I actually think we can also close, you can stop your GeoServer But remember what I told you about graceful starting and shutting down. Do not just close this window, okay? You can, that's why there is a shortcut for doing that. So you'll click on start, and then you can click on GeoServer. Then there is this stop GeoServer is on here. So you're going to use this to stop. And then it's going to show the window for stopping. Here it is. So it has already stopped very fast. Telling me press any key to continue. So in a case of somebody who is using Linux, maybe you can, for Linux, you can just click Control-C on the terminal and it will proceed to exit so you can notice even here it's telling me that it has been stopped. Shutting down and it has been stopped. And it's telling me press any key. So you can click on this black window and press any key to exit. So I will invite you to open up your QGIS. So do you have your QGIS open? So go to the plugins, manage and install plugins. Then it will open this kind of a window. So click all here. If you are installed or not installed, just click all. Then you'll type Post GIS. And there's one thing you'll notice. We have so many plugins that deal with Post GIS. Do you notice that? So, as a take home, whenever you can also test those other plugins. If they are, maybe you can find them relevant to your works, because we have something like this: versioning, River GIS, QGIS model Baker. Like this one says that it creates QGIS projects from database schemas. There's this QGIS query builder, there's Post GIS raster import. This is what you're interested in, okay? And then you also have actually these Post GIS geoprocessing tools, which you can also use to do some things. You can do some geoprocessing inside from the oil in the database. So let's click on Post GIS raster import. This is how it looks like. This is it's abstract. The plugin is designed for easy import file-based raster into Post GIS database. The underlying raster import is based. These are just the developers or the contributors. Yeah, so let's install it. And you can see the tags here is Python. It has been developed in Python. And of course, we also have the home page. So you can click the home page and see wherever it will take you. So in this case, it's taking us to the GitHub repository for the plugin. Okay. Yeah, so if you are well vested in QGIS, you can also develop your own tools that interact with QGIS. Okay. Yeah, preferably using C++ or Python. So let's click on Post GIS raster import, and then we click install plugin button. So it will start installing. Mine has installed very fast. Then it states up there, plugin installed successful. So to confirm that you have also installed your plugin, click on installed here on the side. You'll notice that we have this Post GIS raster. Okay. Also ensure that it is checked. You remember there was somebody who was not seeing the DB manager. It is because it was not, it should be checked, meaning that it is active in the user interface of QGIS. So we'll click close, and we'll click database. You'll notice that we have two items. We only had one item, which was the DB manager. And there's also one thing you may notice. With the DB manager, you cannot import raster file using the DB manager. Did you notice something like that? You can only see the vectors with the DB manager. That's one thing you should take note. And then the shapefile importer only imports shapefiles. Do you see there is a limitation in both of those? Yeah. There's a limitation in shapefile importer because you cannot import a S3 shapefile. You cannot import anything else, and DBF only. Then if you look at this other one, the DB manager, actually let's load our, before we open the tool, if you have opened, just close, load the raster file. And in this case, I want us to load the, let's try the MSA. You remember the MSA TIFF? Yeah, so just drag and drop it in your QGIS. So let me look for mine. I think it is in the, actually it is in your data folder, the one that you had added as a data store in. So we'll start with this. This is the one I'm talking about. Okay. So let's now open our tool. If you already have a raster file in your map canvas or map area, then click on the raster import tool. Under database, click on Post GIS raster import. Then it will show the Post GIS raster import on the side. So do you remember we saw this window in our slide? This is how it looks like. Let me expand it. So this is how it looks like. We have different controls. So next to the raster layer label, we have the drop down here. DB connection, we also have a drop down. Schema, we also have a drop down. And for the table name, it is a text field. Then we have create raster overviews, which is checked, and ensure that it has a check, a tick. And I'll explain why. You can also choose to add the raster to canvas, but leave it as unchecked. So we will start with the raster layer. So the raster layer, I only have one raster layer, and that's why it's showing me the only layer, the only raster layer. So I'll click on it. Then DB connection, I will also click on GIS training DB. Do you notice mine has appeared? It has just appeared. You know, it has not asked me anything. It has appeared. So basically, when you click on that DB, it most likely ask you for a login. Has it done that? Yeah. So where do you think it has gotten the name of the database? We have not told it the name of the database. It has fetched it from the DB manager, okay? Yeah, but since it is a different tool, it is separate from the DB manager, we must authenticate it with the database, okay? That's why it is asking us for a password. You get? Yeah, but the name it has, you know, it is like in the user interface, it's like somewhere where it's storing that name. So it has fetched that name there. So you can input your username and password. So in my case, I'm using Postgres. I believe for most of us. Then we click OK. And you'll notice now it has actually automatically loaded the schema. I have not typed the schema. Do you have your schema as public? Yeah. Cool. Then the table name. So the table name, we can leave it as it is, as MSA town. Then after you have these options, first ensure you have these options like myself here. And then if you have your options like this, you can click on upload. See what happens. So your raster layer needs to show the raster layer name. The DB connection should list your DB. Then the schema should be public and the table name should be the Okay, for the table name you can change, but you know, you can just leave it as it is. Then you can click on upload. Yes. Okay. So it's saying that we'll send you the next step. So that's it's so before better. You go okay. Remember we saw two extensions, Post GIS and Post GIS underscore. So what we miss is Post GIS underscore. Which database are you using? How many databases? How many tables do you have? Because maybe not on something. Maybe. So your question is not. So, let me allow me to, if you just started uploading, you have to just give it some time. See how that which one I know. Yes, extension. Yes. Yes. Post GIS underscore. Post GIS. And for those of us who have uploaded one layer, either the line or the other one, you can try uploading the other last. How are we? Is it moving? Is the percentage saying moving or it's static? Okay. So let me try mine. Upload. Let me add the authentication database. So let's see how fast or slow your computer is. Yeah. But in your opinion, do you think this is a more user-friendly way than the one for SQL? Yeah. Because with the SQL, you know, when you add it in the pgadmin, you know, there's no progress. You just see some, you know, saying query being executed. And then maybe if it has not been executed successfully, the other thing that you're gonna get is an error. Some SQL error that you may not know what it is about, okay? So I believe this is, you know, we've done this before and we encountered the same problem. So we saw which is the alternative. You may be given some images that you need to do some digitizing, or you need to use them from the database. So how do you go about that? So, and you know, you have been given a list of tools like QGIS, Post GIS, QGIS. You do not have, maybe you do not have GeoServer. So how do you go about it? Okay. So this can come in handy. Yeah, so mine is at 42%. Loaded still. or the others that you cannot delete? There's a values you are. No, what I said is we removed some tables. And then we try to remove, there's a table called raster columns. We try to remove that. Then we got a warning that it cannot be removed. So this is because when we created the extension Post GIS underscore raster, what it did is that it created those tables automatically. So those tables are dependent on the extension. So there's another table somewhere for the extension. For those, if you are well invested in database, you know that you may have one table that is somewhere here, that has a foreign, there's a foreign key in another table that refers to the primary key in another table. So the way that when you create that extension like Post GIS or Post GIS raster, it creates a table inside the actual database that you have created the extension. So you cannot remove them. When you remove a table in the database, there's something called cascade. So the cascade option you can put, it's a rule, you can put some rules to say that you cannot remove it, as long as these are the table. So the only way you can remove those columns is you remove the parent table, which is the extension. Okay. So you need to go and remove Post GIS or remove Post GIS raster, so that's how you can be able to remove the raster columns table that we saw here. That was not going away. It was not being removed. Yeah. So there's that whole, the database is a whole kind of there are relational tables. They have been, yeah. So for that case, the raster columns are created when you create Post GIS raster extension. Then the spatial reference systems are created when you create the Post GIS extension, okay? So you can't just remove them. Then secondly, there's also another thing. The Post GIS is not pgadmin. You're not in the actual database, you get. You are accessing it from a third-party application, which is QGIS. Yeah, so there are those kind of rules that are there in the database. So, you cannot remove these a certain table, maybe as long as there's a foreign key to another table. So you may have to remove the parent table or the parent field. So that is, it's some database concept that underlying, but just know that it is because there's an extension. You need to remove that extension. Yeah. So you can just run the query. I think it's drop. Yeah, drop extension or drop extension. It is used well within the database. So it can be used by different tables. Like now, if we are importing MSA town, there will be an MSA town table. If we import Samburu, there will be a Samburu table. Those are already two tables in one database, dependent on using those raster columns. Yeah, the extension. Yeah. So there can be one or multiple, but its use is limited within that container, the database. So if you create another database elsewhere and it does not have those extensions, actually you wouldn't be able to import. Some people have tried to import and it was showing them some error. It cannot understand what raster is. So you need to create that extension. Yeah. And that is the whole concept of Post GIS. Post GIS spatially enables a database, okay? Spatially enables a PostgreSQL database. A PostgreSQL database on its own, it's just a database. You can store some records, names, numbers, numeric, even geometry shapes, but shapes that are not referenced in any coordinate system. Yes, please. Of importing? Yes. Okay. There's something we did previously. We added the layers, these geotiffs into GeoServer, isn't it? So let's say you are presented with a case out there in the real world or in your application somewhere. we do not have GeoServer, but we want these rasters to be accessed by 10 people to do different things. We want different people to digitize different parts of this image. That is I'm giving you a use case. What do? Will you go copying this image of 20 GB or 200 GB, for example, in everyone's laptop? What will happen, as we have seen, even in our machines, somebody will process, there's somebody probably whose image has already imported, uploaded. Somebody else's is not, is probably 50% right now as we're speaking. Somebody else's is hanging and saying, there's something that shows up there, not responding, yeah? So to avoid all these, we put it in a centralized system. So it is like an alternative of what you are doing with GeoServer. Okay, actually the GeoServer way is the best, but we can put it in a centralized database, in one database that is in our database server, add the raster there in that database and give access to different people. And of course, this server of ours will probably have a very good, performance, a good CPU, many CPU cores, SSD storage, and what have you, RAM, probably 128 GB of RAM or something like that. So that is the whole concept of what we are doing now. We are just trying to import these rasters in the Post GIS. So it's part of what we are covering in Post GIS. We have been saving vector files, but have we thought, can we use rasters? Can we save our rasters in a database, in Post GIS database? So that is why we are doing it, because it is something that is also employed out there in the field. And then, do you recall I showed you a link for, there's a website called PGTune, the one that shows you the parameters, how you can adjust the parameters for your database. There's a website that I had shown you. This is in connection to your question. Let me just, while my layer is uploading, let me just refer you to this PGTune. Just search for PGTune. It's used to calculate the configuration for PostgreSQL. Yeah, so if you see, like, you can select your database version here. You can select your operating system, like your operating system is Linux. What are you using it for? Let's say now, if you're using it in a server system that is going to be accessed by, let's say, the whole of Calvo, for example. You have some servers somewhere, you've added your raster there. You can be using it as a data warehouse. And a data warehouse requires a very big, you cannot use your PC as, unless you have really configured it. You probably have a big RAM, a RAID storage of hard disks and all that. So this is data warehouse. Then for the memory, let's put the memory as 16 GB. Then number of CPU cores. Let's say you're using an 8-core processor, or 8-core. Then how many people are going to be connected to this database? Let's say 100. Are you using SSD or this hard disk storage? So whenever you input this, there's a way these guys have coded, and I think you can find the code base for this if you research. You continue looking at this results for the search engine. So you click on generate. So you see this is the output. So all these, while you are seeing your screen hanging, probably some of these parameters are low, and they cannot go beyond where they are because of the RAM that you have. You have to go and install a new RAM or something like that. So this is, for example, you see there's something here called maximum parallel worker. So these consume each core of your CPU. So that's why when we were importing the SQL file, you remember when we were starting importing the SQL file, it was taking like forever, or even crashing the pgadmin. Yeah, so the concept of importing the raster file is basically, as an alternative for GeoServer, web map service. 2, even the PostgreSQL it's an enterprise open source database system. So it is being used by, I mentioned to you that it's being used by something corporation called Digital Globe. They deal with supplying of high resolution satellite image. So you can imagine they are dealing with petabytes of data. Yeah. So how do they store their data? There's one limitation about GeoServer. If you put a very big image in GeoServer, even with all the RAM and everything, you may have to optimize it. You may have to do the GWC, Geo Web Cache, do your tiling, do your seeding. Remember, we did all these things. You saw something saying 365 days. So you can imagine you are the owner of Digital Globe, and you have a client who wants an image within the next 2 days. And then you have GWC, the Geo Web Cache, telling you that it will process after 365 days. So you see that is a challenge already. So what can you use to address this gap? You can get a high-end server and place Post SQL there and add Post GIS there and dump your image there and configure those parameters that I have just shown you. Okay, but okay, these may be beyond our scope, but in a nutshell, that is why we are doing this, because this is something that is actually being applied out there, and you may look at it as an alternative to GeoServer. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I hope I've answered your question. Yeah. So this is what I was telling you, not responding. I don't know if you have this. So yeah. So I actually did this deliberately because this image is very big. Okay. This image is big. In the file system, it's about, I think, 700 MB or thereabout. Yeah. So if importing the SQL file for Nairobi AOI was giving us a headache, and the Nairobi is small, I think there's somebody who started with this and they have been able to import it, isn't it? There's somebody who started with this. I believe they have been able to import it. Anyone who has imported this one successfully, the MSA. Even the guys who are remote, I would want to see somebody who has been able to import this, because this is quite big. You need a huge, you need to be having quite a good CPU, yeah, probably a 12-core CPU to be able to just import it, So this is what we will do. Because of time, we will just, if you try to close this, it won't close. So I would want you to close, to do what the ungraceful closing of QGIS. So you're going to right click here, open your task manager, right click on your task bar, open your task manager. In your case, if you're using Linux, you can use the command for sudo service PostgreSQL restart. Okay. And you can actually try, I think in Linux, you can try and close the QGIS. It's probably going to give you some message, force quit. So I've opened my task manager, and you'll notice something. Look, there's some software here. Postgres is actually consuming a very high CPU. It's chewing up my CPU, okay? It is also chewing up my RAM. Okay, the RAM is not a lot, but power usage, you notice that there's something that is happening here. So what I'll do, instead of dealing with Postgres, this is in Windows, let's just look at, click on this memory. And you'll notice that the QGIS is the one that is consuming the large amount of memory. Here it is, it's written QGIS-bin, okay? So you can right click on it and end task, because it will just stick there, it won't move. So I'll just right click, then end task, and it will disappear. And you notice that my performance of the computer is relaxed a bit. There is no high things that are chewing up my CPUs. So in Linux, if you restart the Postgres, what it's going to do, it's going to close the connection. And QGIS is going to trigger you with a notification that it cannot connect or something. Then you can close it. So let's restart our QGIS and try to import. Begin with the NAI AOI, because it's the smallest. Okay. And also as a take home for you guys, I would want you guys to go and try the MSA TIFF. when you have time. You let your QGIS import it, okay? And you see how long it's going to take. I don't know, maybe, but you'll see, you can try and test. If it takes 10 hours, well and good. If it takes the whole day, fine. But you can try, because eventually it's when it's doing that process, it's going to end that process at some point. So let's click on data, add our layer. So I'm going to use the layer for AOI, this one, NBI AOI TIFF. Here it is. So I'm going to import it in our, using the Post GIS raster import. So I'll add that one, add our database. So this is a repetition of what we did. Also, there's somebody, Daniel, who was asked, does it mean removing the extension will tamper with the tables? Yes. Not necessarily tamper with the tables, but you may not be able to read those. You can only read that table maybe using the pgadmin, but you cannot be able to view the spatial component of that system. And also, you'll have an error because the database will tell you that it does not understand what is raster. And I think we saw that before we created that extension. If you try to load some, the SQL, it told her, it was saying does not know what raster is. The same error was being reflected in QGIS. So I've added my username and password, so I'll click OK. And then the layer here is showing. So I'll click upload, then it will ask me for the authentication to the database. And I'll click OK. And it will start importing. Look, it's already 34%, 52%, 69, 87, 100. So I think also where this tool takes time is it's when it's creating what you call the overviews. That's where it takes time. Yeah, you see it's saying creating overview level 2. So the overviews, think of the overviews as what we were calling tiles. You remember when we in GeoServer, we were using tiles to 56 by 256 and zoom levels. So these are like the overviews. Whenever you zoom, you know, you see it's already on level 8. When you zoom into that image, how fast does it take to load, okay? Another thing that I think would be worth mentioning is that, you know, this is also part of the underlying concepts here, something like it's like we are doing some data engineering of sorts, okay? Whereby, you know, this raster file is big. How do you cut it, or how do you load it in chunks? If I zoom into an image for up to zoom level 10, how fast will those features, you know, load? I'm sure you have ever opened an image in your PC, an image that you have just taken with your camera, and you'll notice that whenever you zoom in, it probably takes some time to clear or to process or to show clear clear layer, image. Yeah, so we actually at level 256, upload successfully finished. After a couple of, I think it has taken like 2 minutes. So let me close this and I'm going to open my database. I'm going also to remove this layer. So another trick is when you're using your QGIS, the raster import, do not check on the create overviews, okay? But note that if you do not create overviews, your image is going to be lagging a bit. It's going to be slow, you know, rendering and all that. So let's click Post GIS training DB. Let me log into my database. Click public. Let me confirm that I have my NBI. So I already have it. And then do you notice that I have different tables? I have 128, 8. So let me open the original one first, the actual one. This is how it looks like. Let me remove it, or let me just disable it. Let me open the 8. Let me open the maximum one, which is 256. Do you see how the 256 one looks like? Yeah? This is how it looks like. Let me open the 32. So it is like it's creating different layers of pixelated images, okay? Yeah. So that's why I was saying you can skip, because why it was taking the long process is because it was processing other overviews, okay? Yeah, so at least we have been able to import these layers. Now the final tool that I want us to look at is that works with Post GIS, is called the Post GIS query. Is it a query builder? Let me refer you back to the slides. Short leave for a minute. Yeah, so we've been able to work with this plugin. So in future, let me just mention something. If you are given a SQL file for raster and the actual raster file, it would be best to take the raster file and use this plugin to add it in the Post GIS database. Alternatively, if you have GeoServer, you can put it in the GeoServer raster data store, okay? And then you do the tiling using the GeoWeb cache, okay? Yeah. So we have what you call the Post GIS query builder, and this is a user-friendly query generation. So it usually provides an environment for querying or doing some spatial analysis without having to deal with the SQL code. So there's one of us who we were trying to type in some SQL code, and we noticed that we were getting an error because of just missing a semicolon. So you see that process can be tedious. If you looked at the SQL file for the raster, the AOI and the Samburu, you notice that it has so many lines. So imagine if you are given that task of probably typing one line, typing from line to line without making mistakes. It can be a headache. You agree? So you can use this Post GIS query builder. You can generate queries. You can use partial joins, those queries that we talked about in our previous session. Yeah, so there are many other plugins that you can also use with your Post GIS. So for the others, I'll leave you to research on them. However, to install these, we are just going to install it and see how it looks like. But you can go and test it on yourself in your own time. So let's go to plugins and manage and install plugins. And while we are at that, you're going to search for Post GIS query builder. Post GIS. So why am I not seeing things here? Can someone tell me why? If you look at my screen, why can't I see? You remember the other one when we were searching, we saw many items. Why can I not? Can't I see the items? Yes, it's because I'm under installed. So I'm not searching from installed. I should be searching from all or not installed. So if I click not installed, this is what it brings. So if you click all, I think they should be even many. So we'll click QGIS query builder. Where is it? Sorry, Post GIS query builder. Yeah, here it is. It's one word. And when I click on it, it displays the abstract and all the information here. And it even shows the number of downloads. And you notice that it has an icon for Post GIS. If you look at the abstract here on the top right, in my screen, there's this icon for Postgres. So we'll click install plugin. Then I believe it has already installed. You'll notice something has changed in the user interface, even in your user interface. So you have this user interface here where you can, under connection, you can click on the connection to the database. It will of course ask you to log in or authenticate against your database. Then the schema, then it has already detected these layers. So you can double click, if you, under connection, if you have logged in successfully, it will show you the primary key field and the geometry field for your layer. So you can double click on any layer here. So I can double click on world admin, for example, and then it will ask me the query type. You remember we were typing these queries manually or copy pasting them in our previous session. ST, intersection, ST, all that. So let me click on the field selection, and then it displays all the fields, all the columns in that table. And it has automatically selected the geom table. And then we have something here. You can also switch between your layers. So let me stick to world admin. Then you can click on the type of filter. So what do I want to filter against? You can even insert a row. You can insert a record. You can also order your ordering is, AZ index, so like the way you order things in Excel and all that. So you can do the order. You can write, if you are good in SQL language, you can type in your own SQL commands. Then you can also check table. You can also use history. Then after you are finished, you can run your query. There's a button written run query here, although it's small in my screen. Yeah, so basically this tool, you can use it. It comes in handy. You can use it to do your spatial queries or any other queries that you want to do against your table. So yeah, so that said, I think we have been able to cover most of the things, if not all, revolving around Post GIS. Okay, we have been able to demonstrate the interoperability between Post GIS and GeoServer, Post GIS and QGIS. Okay, we have been able to, to interact with some of the at least two plugins, or that one plugin for importing the raster. We have seen different cases in which we can handle our raster data in Post GIS. Okay, and if you are interested in that field, you can actually, there is still a lot to be done in terms of Post GIS, in terms of raster processing in Post GIS. Okay, there's a lot that has been done on vectors, but on raster, it's still something that is, the developers and all those people and the analysts are still researching and trying to find a better way of improving it. So that could be also your field of research if you're interested, okay, in terms of the rasters. So that is, this is also we have also looked at the query builder. Yeah, and among other items, we have been able to see how we can import also the vector layers. We did this in our previous sessions, but we have also done it today using the PostGIS shapefile importer and using the DB manager, okay, inside the QGIS. Yeah, so you can actually have a good, you can create some GIS outputs, present a certain thematic, a certain concept like agriculture and all those things revolving around agriculture, climate change, using these tools, using the Post GIS. It's quite powerful, and it can come in handy in different ways. Okay. And finally, these are open source tools, so you don't need any license to pay for them. So you can just, like now, you already have Post GIS, GeoServer, and QGIS in your PCs. Okay, so yeah, that summarizes our content for today or for this session. And I don't know if there are any questions, any queries, any challenges. So if I may ask you, how do you find the Post GIS now? Is it clearer than it was in the previous session? In the previous session, we were running SQL commands, probably they didn't make sense. They are not making any sense, you get? Isn't it? But now we have been able to do, you have this user interface that you are doing some things and, seeing some output. Yeah. So they have, at least, I believe, and then you have introduced other like softwares like QGIS, Query Builder, and the importer. Yeah. So yeah, so you can check out the links that we have shared, and you can also refer to their documentations. And you see how you can apply the knowledge of this Post GIS into your various or relevant field. Okay. So this brings us to the end of this session today. And would really like to thank you for your participation. I think it has been really an interactive session. And I would like to wish you a good night. And in case of any questions, feel free to reach out to the email provided in front of you or through the WhatsApp chat. So otherwise, have a good night and a good weekend.